Hello friends, take two. This is a pop-up, not necessarily training, but a pop-up live about anxiety and about my journey through and supporting others to do the same, my journey through anxiety and what's on the other side. I've had lots of conversations. Hi Debbie. Now I may be able to see the name that pops up if you are jumping on live, but I might not be able to see the comments because I'm on my phone because I can't work out how to get the live happening on my desktop because all the settings have changed. So I wanted to talk today about anxiety. Hi Jenna, so many of my friends, colleagues, clients, and family members are sharing their past journey or their current journey with anxiety and how debilitating it can be. Now, everything I share comes from a place of deep compassion and non-judgment. It's a very personal journey, and it's something that you get to decide for yourself. My intention with these kinds of transmission is always an informative experience. It's just the opportunity to have a perception shift around how you currently think about the thing. Now, something I've learned about my human design. So I am a projector, a 1-3. So my lines are 1-3. So the 1 is an investigator. And so I naturally have this ability, curiosity, this capacity to keep an open mind and be really curious about what's on the other side of everything. And I am aware that there's things that I don't know that I don't know. And so I am open. I don't have super fixed thinking. I do on some things, but not everything. I'm very, very open to looking at new ways. So when I think that when I'm experiencing something and it's not turning out the way I want it to turn out, I don't keep banging my head against the wall doing it the same way. I just naturally open myself up to other perspectives on things. So what I'm sharing with you today is just another perspective on this piece about anxiety. And so a little bit about me first. So I'm not a doctor. So this is a disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. And I'm sharing this from a place of experience and deep knowledge and lots of research and lots of client testimonials. And I'm not a doctor. And the journey started with me when I first had my first child. And the experience of anxiety, I had postnatal anxiety, but to the extreme, that it was so extreme that I couldn't sleep. So the fear and anxiety about being woken, because I couldn't predict when I was going to be woken, that I just couldn't go to sleep in general. So you can imagine what I was like at that time. And the doctor said to me, when I spoke to my doctor about it, the doctor said to me, have you had anxiety before? Like, hey, when you reflect, is that something that you've experienced before? And I said, no, I've never experienced this before, because I didn't think I had. I didn't understand it, and I didn't even recognize that my entire life I was hypervigilant and anxious most of the time. And I was just really, really, really good at hiding it. And people would say to me, this is the thing that people would say to me, the more stressful a situation gets, the more calm you look and the more calm you act. Now, I was on the outside like a duck on the pond, like a duck on the pond. I'm just opening my browser. And the duck on the pond really just, it's floating along the top of the lake, but underneath my little fins were going insane. So internally, there was an absolute shit show going on internally. My entire life, I was always hyper vigilant. I was always just not feeling safe. And so, but I didn't learn what that meant or what that reflection was until I understood anxiety more, until I came home to my body, until I recognized that I spent most of my human existence until my 30s disassociated. And one of the signs of this is that you can't remember very much of your childhood. And so, or teenage years. So I would catch up with friends. So I'm 43 now. I would catch up with friends that I went to school, 25 years ago, and they would talk about, oh, remember this? And I cannot remember people's names. I can't remember. I just don't remember. I have some poignant memories about my experiences as a child and in my family, but very, very vague and very, very few. And so that's one of the signs, is that I spent most of my life not present in my body. So I don't recall the experiences. And so I wasn't having the experience from a present place. So the memory is not formed. And the journey, hang on, where was I going with this? The anxiety, yes, my life, I always had that undercurrent of anxiety, but didn't even know that that's what it was. It wasn't something in my awareness. Became a mother, the doctors asked me that question, I said no. Then the experience of my, child, my baby's needs needing to be met, and then this crippling anxiety that I had where I then couldn't sleep. So of course that was going to make everything worse. We can't, it's one of our primary needs, and we can't function if that's actually happening. And so the worst possible scenario for me was to go on medication. I wasn't interested. I have a long history of the looking outside the box and living outside the box and recognizing the matrix and the institutionalization that we live in and all the templates and paradigms that exist. So I didn't want to go on medication. That was not a solution for me. I knew that anxiety was my body screaming that something wasn't right, that I needed to do something. I didn't know what the something was, but it wasn't right. And the thing was, the doctors would say to me, it's very confusing, Sky, because you're so cognitively aware of, what is going on. I won't go into the details of some of the thoughts that were going on when, in my early stages of motherhood, but it was not textbook. It wasn't fitting the textbook of postnatal depression, and they didn't really know what to do. And so anyway, they ended up sending me to a psychiatrist who would help me, supposedly. So I had gone 12 weeks, my baby was 12 weeks old, and I had cried every single day and couldn't really see the forest for the trees and couldn't really function well at all. And I came out of that appointment with the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said, the only thing, it was a very short appointment, and the only thing he said was, you need a village to raise a baby. You don't have a village, because I didn't. And so take these, and gave me a script for medication. Now, I was completely desperate. My husband was completely desperate. But it was like a God moment for me, because I knew that wasn't the answer. I knew that there had to be another way to look at this. Thank God. Just thank God. And So I left there. My husband was desperately wanting there to be a solution for this, and was hoping that this person could help me with the solution. I said, that was a waste of time and a waste of money, and then tore up the script and said, I have to work this out myself. And so there began 12, my son is about to turn 12, so 11 and a half years ago, there began the journey for me. Now, I have been on the journey of awareness and awakening since I was a teenager. Like, I have, I discovered meditation when I was 14, and I was very open and aware, but I continued that as a spiritual bypass, as an escape from the human experience. And so what I realized was that it was actually, I was wired to live outside my body. And it's hard sometimes to conceptualize that, but it was like I had this incredible ability to tolerate stress. I had this incredible ability to tolerate pain. I had such a stoic kind of persona, and that was because I wasn't present in my body. I wasn't processing my feelings. I wasn't feeling the thing. Hi, Kerry. I wasn't actually in my body to feel. And so if I'm not in my body to feel, then I can tolerate an enormous amount. But I'm also missing out on the experience of life. Like, it feels weird that I feel like I have missed out on so much of my life because I can't remember. And that is bizarre. Like, that's a bizarre sensation. Now that I've taken the journey home to my body, to wholeness, and to a feeling of safety in my body. So now that I'm in my body and I'm in the present moment, and I can feel everything, and everything's just literal waves of experience, I feel so present and so at peace and so aware of, not in a hypervigilance kind of way, but a deep presence. And now I know what was missing in all those years. Like, I actually missed the first few years of my son's life because of this experience of extreme and crippling anxiety. And anxiety is just a separation from self. And so as I continued on the cost on my body was that the cost on my life was my lack of presence and my lack of connection, of deep connection, and the lack of belonging that I felt. I did not feel like I belonged. I didn't feel like I belonged to my family. I felt like I just didn't feel like I belonged even here on the planet, because I didn't belong to myself. So our feelings and our experience of our life and our reality is a reflection of how we feel within ourselves, how we see ourselves, and how we experience ourselves. And so it's true, you cannot unconditionally love someone else if you can't unconditionally love yourself. And people can argue till they're blue in the face. You cannot give what you haven't received in yourself. And so the cost was those experiences, but the cost was the internal war inside my body. And so I lived pretty numb up until my 30s, and then in my early 20s, I got random viral meningitis where I nearly died. And my experience of passing out and then seeing my own funeral and then waking up saying there's something really wrong, I just witnessed my own funeral and who was there, and my battery's running low. And so there was this internal war inside, and I saw a healer. Hi, Emily. I saw a healer, trying to balance my phone on the charger, who said to me, I go into a healer after I had this experience of seeing my own funeral and thinking, what is this about? And the healer said to me, because viral meningitis is inflammation in the meninges in the spine. And she's like, that's rage at the family. It's rage at the very core of your being. And so this was this internal war that was happening, that my body had an inability to continue to kind of cope. So it started breaking down. It started having these experiences where things weren't going right. So I traversed that for a little while with this healer. And she said, what are you angry about? I didn't feel angry. I was unable to access that feeling within my body. I had learned in my life that anger was unbecoming, and you just dealt with it. I just dealt with things. And I didn't burden anyone with these unwanted feelings. No one really cared, is my experience, as in my internalized experience. No one cared to hear or hold me or help me navigate these things. So they just got tucked away. So I had no connection to how to answer that question. And you think about when somebody says to you, what do you really want? What do you really desire? What really brings you joy? What does pleasure look like for you? What are your goals? How do you really feel? So many people say to me, I just don't know. And I get it. That I fully get it. That's the journey I've walked through. I did not know. I knew at some level that I was destined for more and all that kind of thing. And I knew things at a conceptual level. Like I knew what happiness looked like, and I knew what connection looked like, and I knew what love looked like, but I didn't have the experience in my body because I wasn't in my body, because I didn't feel safe in my body. And I was wired to disassociate immediately. When things became too much, I would disassociate, I would check out, and then I would just function. And I would do the things that needed to be done from a disassociated place. And so my nose is going off because which is related to the heart. And so my nose is itchy because I'm sharing from my heart. And so and I got myself off track, disassociating. Yes, and so the viral meningitis. So I didn't have any access to the feelings in my body. So she continued to sit there, this healer sat there in front of me and just looked me in the eyes and said, what are you angry about? I said, I'm not angry. I don't feel anger. What are you angry about? She just kept asking me and asking me and asking me until I reached, hi Helen, until I got so annoyed at her asking me that question. And so she continued to ask me that question until I got so angry that I felt everything go hot in my body and my ears go hot. And then I was like, I'm not angry. And then she said, we're not going to do a healing today, because she didn't want to smooth things over. She said, I want you, gave me some potions, some flower essence and things like that, and said, I want you for the next month to traverse this untapped rage, and gave me some tools and some journaling and some things that I had to do. And she said, and I'll see you in a month. Now, here's the thing, right? I seriously celebrate that version of me that says, I'm going to do this. I want things to change, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to go into this because I want to feel different. The human part of us wants things to be as easy as possible. So we could go, no, I just want you to tell me the answer, and I want this to be easy, and I just okay, I'm angry that, my parents didn't really meet my emotional needs, and I'm angry that, and I could just tell you from a mind place what that experience of anger would look like in my life. My justified anger from needs not being met when I was a child. Yet, we know that that's not going to take us anywhere. That's not going to shift anything. In order for energy to move, we need to actually go through it. And so I did what she said, took the potions as well, which obviously amplified things so that I could get in touch with what was stuck, what was tapped down. I journeyed with that. It was not a pleasant experience. I had the most unbelievable dreams for that month because I was starting to, process some of the things that had been suppressed. Went to see her again, it was just the tip of the iceberg. But what it demonstrated to me was that I knew I could finally feel sensations in my body. Now, it didn't stop me from disassociating. It didn't stop me from going, whew, this is not a safe place for me to actually process this thing right now. So I still disassociated and I still did the things to avoid and disconnect from the experience of navigating my feelings. However, I knew what the sensation was. So then fast forward a couple of years, maybe 5 years, I was living my life, had a new partner who is now my husband, had a new partner, we were living a pretty good life, and I was pretty good at keeping the peace. I was pretty good at just of self-abandoning to keep the peace because I wanted a sense of belonging and a sense of connection. And this was the first time I'd really experienced anything like this. And by this stage, I was 27. And then I was out one day and I tried on some swimwear and I looked in the mirror and I had black bruises on my legs, like this big, and like they were coloured in with texture. I'd never seen bruises like it. And over my legs, and I was like, that's weird. And I was with my mum at the time and she's like, why have you got black texture? Why have you, and we had a conversation about it, and they were these black bruises. And I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel like any major fatigue. I didn't feel any of those things because I still had those tendencies. I was still wired to disconnect from my body. Long story short, found out I had aplastic anemia, which is full bone marrow failure. So it's called empty bone marrow, and it's like leukemia, but the opposite. So instead of creating too many white cells and things, it's every new cell that's created by the bone marrow, it gets killed, it gets knocked out by the T cells. And then so it's the issue with the T cells who've got the wrong memo and are killing all the new cells. So eventually you just go into a coma and die. And so I went and had a blood test. They called me straight away, like half an hour after I had the blood test, and said, you need to get in an ambulance and you need to go to the hospital. That's how dire it was. And they could not believe that I had got to that level before I'd noticed anything, because I was so disconnected from my body. Long story short, I've obviously recovered from it. It's an incredibly rare condition, and it's I believe, because it's an autoimmune disease, it's this internal war that I had experienced for most of my life. And it was my body saying, with anxiety and all the other things, it was my body saying, enough is enough. Like, this is the end. This is the actual end. It would have been the end. And you can imagine how the anxiety surfaced at that point, because at that point in my life, I had a morbid fear of needles. Like crazy morbid fear. Terrified of a needle going into my skin. And this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about with anxiety, is that the way that if you do cognitive behavioral therapy or therapy to support overcoming anxiety, like anxiety of things like spiders and stuff like that. They take you through a journey of exposure therapy, and you get exposed to the fear, and then you develop resilience with your vagus nerve. You develop resilience, and this is like, now there's heaps more research in this, but you get exposure to the thing that you've got the anxiety about, and then you are able to then tolerate, you're able to then handle it and know that it's not going to actually kill you. So I had exposure therapy with needles because I had to have so many in all the testing phase that I went through, and then the treatment phase that I went through, until I got a central line in to be able to get the treatment. And when I was in there, I thought I would, the risk was being at the end of my life, and I had to really consider, I really had to reflect on it all. And in the journey of the deep healing that I had to take myself through as I was in having treatment over 2.5 years, the treatment went on for, was that I recognized that I didn't really know my body. I couldn't really feel my body. And so the journey of reconnecting with my body was actually because I almost wasn't going to have a body. And what I did was I spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours every single day just inside my body. I did this beautiful meditation called Building Body Harmony, and it goes through the 12 cranial nerves, and it is all harmony through the whole body. But I talked to my T cells, I talked to my bone marrow, my platelets, and my blood, and had this, and developed this profound relationship with my body. And on the journey, the doctors kept saying to me, you're going to need to do all of these things in order for you to recover. You're going to have a bone marrow transplant. You're going to have to, freeze your eggs because you have to have this treatment that's going to affect your fertility. And being me, I took the journey of really exploring outside of that paradigm that was being presented to me. And if I could have this destructive process that was happening within my body, then surely I could create harmony. Surely I could create the shift. But what it involved was me actually facing up to everything that I was avoiding, including the needles, including being in the hospital, including having treatment that was absolutely awful to my human body, and everything. I had studied naturopathy and herbs, and my situation was so dire that nothing would work quick enough in order to halt, the cellular destruction that was happening. And I had to have, multiple blood transfusions every day, just to keep my organs functioning. And so it was a representation of the absolute disconnection I had with my body. And so what I did was, I did have a wake-up call, the other time with the rage and the anger. Then I had a huge wake-up call at this point at 27. And then I kind of still went back into some old kind of ways. And then I had a baby when I was 31. And then it was like, there was no way around it. I had to deal with it. Now, here's the other thing, is that we can't outrun ourselves. You just can't outrun yourself. We can do things to smooth it over and to avoid and to numb and to disassociate and to shelve our unprocessed stuff. We can take medication, we can drink wine, we can eat food, we can obsess over, exercise, we can be a workaholic, we can do all of those things, and all we do is put pause on those things until there comes a time where there's a gap and it will catch up with us. We have to process it. where whether we like it or not, it's going to take you there. Like, it's going to eventually have to be processed. And so this is the thing. We decide, am I going to deal with it now or later? If I choose later, and now I just want to be avoidant, and I'm consciously choosing to be avoidant, and I'm going to just do it later. We then don't get to choose when the later is. It chooses for us. We then give up the opportunity to do it consciously, and we get it in the form of dis-ease and dysfunction. And then it's forced upon us. And then we're like, oh, yeah, okay, here we go. And so regardless of which way you choose, because I've chosen both at times, I've done it, I've done things consciously, and I've had them, slam me in the face and have to navigate it without, like, spontaneously. And the way, the destruction that happens in the body with unprocessed stuff is, we can navigate that through the journey of healing in connection. And so the first piece that I wanted to give you is that the first piece of what it takes to heal anxiety naturally, and the first step is recognizing that we do it in community with others. So we don't heal in isolation, we heal in connection with others. So this is not getting someone to rescue us and do it for us. This is being in consultation with somebody that can guide you through the process so that you can see more of yourself. And so what ended up happening for me was I recognized that the way that I was going about things wasn't leading me to the ultimate healing, the deep core healing. I was healing layers of stuff because I was still improving and I was still functioning, and I wasn't having, I eventually could sleep and things like that. Like, I navigated by the time my son was 9 months old, I had learned tools like breath work and a different kind of meditation and some ways in which to support my nervous system so that I could sleep. So then I was able to function better and sleep, and so things had improved. However, when things got stressful again, like when I had my second child and there was other things, then I found that there was only a very, very small space before I'd get overwhelmed again. It wasn't like I couldn't get fully resourced. I couldn't get fully regulated and chilled. It was like I was always just bubbling below, like just my head just above the surface. And so that's when I discovered, I got a download through my experiences in my coaching and healing business, was that I got this download through the body. And I thought that meant yoga, and then I thought that meant quantum, these different quantum somatic therapies that were to support the body. And I'd do them, and I did get support. But then I found a beautiful practitioner and healer and mentor that actually had a whole devotion and pathway to coming back to a place of peace and wholeness in the body, and actually doing trauma release and doing it in like a graceful kind of way. And that was about 18 months ago. And the journey, and so up until that point, I didn't have crippling anxiety or anything like that, but I still had like an undercurrent of anxiety, an undercurrent of I'm not fully safe to be all of who I am. I'm still just feeling a little bit like not a full sense of belonging, not a deep connection with community, not still feeling a little bit isolated. And the other way it showed up for me was social anxiety. So I would get really intense social anxiety before I went to any kind of thing. I would get massive anxiety before I'd show up online. And my husband's messaging me, am I still online? And yes, I'm still online. And I just functioned with it. It's like, it's fine. It's not that big a deal. Like, just do some breaths and go and deliver what you want to say, and, you know, go to that event, go to that lunch event because you bought a ticket, and just deal with these feelings in the body. But what I learned through this journey of navigating anxiety by listening to my body and by listening to the wisdom and following her lead to take me to a place, to take me home to myself, was that undercurrent was costing my vitality. It was costing my life force, and it was costing my connection with others. Because while I'm in that little undercurrent of anxiety, I'm never fully present and fully connecting and fully available for what is there for me. There's always a, you know what that sensation is like, that undercurrent of anxiety, like always having to check and using up your life force doing that rather than experiencing joy and pleasure and deep connection. And so through the journey of the somatic practices that I learned to process what was unprocessed, to allow myself to just ride the wave as the wave came. So as I recognized that in this moment, I'm a little bit anxious before I go on to do that live, like I was today. The irony of this live is that I don't normally get anxious before I share anymore because of all the work that I've done. And I had a little bit of anxiety before I came on and shared. And, you know, I don't plan anything. I just let it all come through. And I had a little bit of anxiety. And so it's like, what is here for me? What do you want to share? Where is this feeling coming from? Where do I feel it in my body? And taking the moments to connect with my body and feel her wisdom. But I can only do that if I create a safe place for me to do that. And so, yes, it's breath work. Yes, it's somatic practices. And it's the willingness to go there with the feelings that are coming up. And so when we do that, you know, I am so excited to share that I don't get social anxiety when I go into new environments anymore. And I'm talking 40 years of feeling that way in environments. Now, I am an introvert. I am somebody who loves, like, I like smaller, intimate groups. I like to be on my own. I'm naturally an introvert. And when you create safety within, when you have a deep connection with your body, I can feel and I know when I'm well resourced, and I know when I can go into groups and have an amazing experience of connection and joy and play and pleasure when I go into social environments. And I'm so connected that I also know if I'm not well resourced, if I'm not feeling in my body and I'm not connected, then I don't expect those things of myself. I don't go into those environments if I'm not expecting it. Or if it's like a lunch that I've paid for and I'm going to go to, I know what to do and how to support myself to come into a place of wholeness and peace within, and resource myself so that I can then go into those social situations. And so, whether on the spectrum of anxiety, whether you are at the undercurrent stage, spectrum of anxiety, that it's just this undercurrent, just this kind of like, it's just there sometimes and it's sort of bubbling away. or the other end of the scale where it's so severe that it's affecting the way you function in life and it's a level of panic attack kind of anxiety, or the somewhere in between. The way to healing, the way to wholeness and peace within is through the body. And it is the connection with the body, and it's our willingness to call ourselves out on the avoidance and call ourselves out on the numbing and call ourselves out on the fear of really going there. Because let me assure you, yes, there's a massive well. Hi Mel, there's a massive well. I'm coming to the end now, so catch the replay, have a listen after I finished. There's a well of unprocessed stuff, right? So when you first go, okay, I'm going there, and you've got support doing it, because remember I said we have to do it in connection with others. We do it with a therapist or with healing or with a group of, in a group healing situation, or with a any kind of practitioner, or with a friend. I think I said practitioner twice. That we do it in community with others, because that's how women heal. That's how the feminine meets herself. So we go into the experience of, this is what I'm choosing to do. I'm going to lean in because I really want to create shifts in my own well-being and my own vitality and my own experience of this life. There will be a well of unprocessed stuff that will feel like this is a bit too much and I'm a bit afraid of what's going to be uncovered. But just like anything that we're anxious about, anxiety is always fear of the fear. And so the remedy to that is to lean in and know that it won't kill you. It won't overtake you. What happens is, initially, it will be like, whoa, it'll be like a massive wave, because you start to feel the sensations in your body when you haven't been having that experience. And so it can feel like a lot. But like all exposure therapy, you will develop and create resilience to the experience. You will create resilience. And the more that you allow yourself to be held and allow yourself to lean in and go there, you actually realize that the wave is just that. It's a wave, and they subside. And just like the tide, it's not high tide and full tide all of the time. It is always ebbing and flowing. And that is exactly like when we choose to go through and process the things that we have left unprocessed. And I encourage you to choose somebody to do it with that is trauma informed, that has done the work themselves, so that they can hold the space for you to do it. The journey for me was that I was trying to do it with a friend who wasn't able to hold the space. They hadn't done their own work, so they couldn't be with the intensity of what was there. And that's what happens. If somebody can't be with what's going on for you, it's because they haven't done it for themselves. And, if we look at our relationships, like my husband couldn't hold space initially for my feelings of when I was going through a shitstorm, because he hadn't done it for himself. And so now that he's done that work for himself, he can hold the space when I'm wildly, upset or raging or processing something really big, because he can hold the space knowing that it's my stuff and not his. So choosing somebody to take the journey with that can hold you and keep you to your word, because naturally fear is going to try and talk you off course. So the reason we do it with somebody is because your brain is wired to take you away from fear. Your brain is wired to say, don't go there. This is too scary. You want somebody that can fiercely hold the space for you to go through that wave. And the final piece is that there's a ferocious devotion to what's on the other side. So that's all that has to happen. You have to have a ferocious devotion to going through it, because on the other side is the ultimate liberation. Like the fact that I can talk to, I can have any conversation. I can talk to anyone, even where something really crappy has happened and there's a real kind of intense confrontation that's about to happen. Like I've had lots over the last 18 months. I've had someone publicly humiliate me on social media that I was like, oh my gosh, 12 months ago, this would have absolutely floored me. And to be able to hold myself through that experience, to know myself deeply, to not be completely derailed by experiences like that, to be able to share vulnerably, to be able to connect deeply in my relationships. All of those things have become possible from taking this journey of relationship with the body and being able to feel myself wholly and to feel whole and complete and at peace within. And the only way that we can do that is by calling all those parts of ourselves that we have left in other experiences of our life and call them all home into our heart space and have space for all of who we are. And then allow ourselves to release the trauma, release the things that we've that are unprocessed. And that is what has us in a place of wholeness within. So yes, I experience anxiety at times. Yes, I experience fear about things. Yes, I have days where I'm like, far out, I am so sad, I've got so much grief. Things just feel hard and I just don't know what to do. I am still a human. And I know that these tools that I've journeyed with over the years and now can facilitate other people to take this same journey home to themselves, into their body, is because I was willing to go there and I was willing to let myself be seen by another person, by a community. And it was in letting myself be seen in a community, and I still am stretching myself with that experience in here and in other people, beautiful friends that I've got into their communities. I'm still stretching myself. I still have moments where I'm like, is it really safe to do this? Are they going to think I'm crazy, or is this unacceptable, or is this too much? I still have those experiences. And I know how to hold myself, and I know how to not let those things stop me from being in connection with community, because that community is that sense of belonging that as a human, and I get this wave of emotion, as humans, that is all that we need. That is all that we need. And our ability to connect and belong deeply to ourselves is the beginning, is the core piece. So there are many amazing herbs and many amazing things that we can do to support our nervous system and support anxiety naturally. Some of the supplements would be, the very basics would be vitamin B complex and magnesium. And those core pieces, and then the diet side of things is that our lifestyle and what we eat would be that we don't have lots of stimulants, we don't have lots of sugar. We want to have adequate fat and protein to ground our nervous system. So supplements and how we nourish our body is incredibly important for the foundations of a regulated nervous system. And then practices like when we get a wave of adrenaline through the body where we go, you know, I don't know whether this is safe, that we actually respond. We don't just go lock it down and go, I've got to just muscle through this. That we actually shake it through the body and we voice what we're feeling, and we practice acknowledging the sensations in the body, so that we actually listen, we build a relationship, we listen to the communication of the body, and we create relationships where we can process our unprocessed stuff. And when we do that, we create this incredibly liberated self-expression. So this was super long and massive. So let me know what landed for you, what you got from this transmission today. And of course, I am somebody that can facilitate this kind of healing journey. So send me a message and we can have a conversation. I have a mixture of I have hybrid programs, group programs, one-on-one programs, and then hybrid, where it's a mixture of group work and one-on-one work. Of course, in group programs, you're one of the group. Deep and profound transformation can happen and does happen. I have amazing client experiences for people who work with me at a group capacity. My one-on-ones, they quantum leap because the support is personalized to their exact situation in that exact moment, and so it's a faster and more intimate journey of healing. And then the hybrid is the somewhere in between. It is the beautiful opportunity to be in community and experience more of yourself and others in a community of like-minded souls doing this deep work, of this deep transformation work and healing. And it depends on what level you're at, depends on how ready you are to create these shifts. So send me a message if you're ready to create these transformations in your world, and I will share more of what comes through as it comes through. You know, I haven't been planning sessions in this group. I've just been like, when it's there and it's ready to come through, I just go, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to share it in here. And I find that the most potent at the moment for me and my community. So have a beautiful afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And let me know you watch the replay as well. And I'll speak with you soon. Ciao.